I know that I met briefly at one of the events for Mesa Chamber of Commerce at the studios in Toyota Mesa, but I was briefing on your LinkedIn. I hope you don't mind. I saw a little bit about your background. You did over like 2 decades at Vanguard, is that right?
I did, yeah. So I moved down to Arizona after college and sort of stumbled on Vanguard at a job there. And I am very thankful I did. Really got to have, gosh, I feel like multiple careers during that time frame. I was able to really get a lot of wonderful knowledge about investments in the finance world that I can use to this day, and learned a lot of I probably grew up there, I guess you could say, as well. And from individual contributor roles to project management type roles to leadership, and really enjoyed every single bit of it. And just looking forward to, I kind of wanted to step out and get into serving my community through nonprofit or my church or both. And so this is how I ended up here at Midwest Food Bank.
Beautiful. Was there a particular moment that made you really want to shift into that community and nonprofit work?
Corporate America is amazing. There's so many great things about it. I just didn't feel as connected, like, to the actual person that I'm supporting as much based off the roles that I had. And so, I wanted to really sort of feed my soul a bit more. And I know that having volunteered at Midwest Food Bank and my church and different things in the community, I really wanted just to lean into that. And I was super blessed to be able to have that opportunity to do so, having been where I worked. And so, yeah, an opportunity popped up here at Midwest Food Bank and explored it a little further. And next thing you know, I am stepping out of a very well-defined career into a ambiguous space of the nonprofit world. Little did I know, it was a month before the pandemic started. And so I really hit the ground running.
The least. I can only imagine the transition in the best of times to go from that career to nonprofit space, but then to do so at that time frame, I'm sure was a unique experience. Well, what about, I'm super curious. Have you found, looking back, anything in your corporate experience that has really helped you or proven surprisingly valuable even in your nonprofit leadership?
It is surprising to say that, coming from a corporate entity, we had, gosh, I left when there was $6 trillion under management. I mean, every resource you can imagine for anything you need and the people and all that, which is great. And coming to a nonprofit with 6 people and limited resources, that was definitely a shock, and just a different mindset to really lean into. But there's actually a lot of parallels. Essentially, I'm running a small business of sorts, and I have a budget, I have employees that I'm leading, developing strategy for, this year and into the future. And so, there's a lot of relationship management. There's a lot of parallels that I just didn't expect. And I'm really thankful for that because, um, the other, unique things that I might come across that I haven't yet experienced, it allows me to really navigate those more efficiently by leaning on some of the foundational knowledge that I had gained from my previous corporate experience.
Totally agree. I mean, I also worked for a nonprofit once upon a time, and those parallels. If you're someone who has worked in corporate America or have run a business and you're thinking about starting a nonprofit and getting involved with a nonprofit, I think there is a really clear through. But yeah, I hope more people know that because nonprofits need our support. However much you're comfortable sharing, I'm just curious, why the food bank? And is it because you've had any personal tie to it? You just saw a need? Why this particular nonprofit?
What really drew me to Midwest Food Bank is the fact that it's a faith-based nonprofit. So with that, everything boils down to loving God and loving people and just helping people where they're at. So it's really wonderful to be able to have the opportunity to do so through a nonprofit or a food bank. I think the medium of what it is isn't as relevant as like the what or why we're doing it. So yes, we're a food bank, but honestly, we are here to help provide an opportunity for people to fellowship with one another. So they do that through not just the volunteering, but our interactions with the other food pantries that we're working with across the entire state. Gosh, our vendors, everyone is really just trying to help others. And it's a very refreshing space to be in and just very positive. People are happy they're helping others and they can feel that in some way. So the fact that it's a food bank, I just happened to have volunteered here and knew that it was a fun time each time that I had come. And so, yeah, why not? Right? If not me, then who? So I jumped right in.
I just realized we share that in common too. I started as a volunteer at the nonprofit.
Do it. Yeah.
How that works, the universe, right?
Mhm.
And thanks for sharing that, by the way. What's interesting to me about what you said in terms of fellowship and faith-based organizations, for context, I'm not someone who I don't consider myself to be religious, but I would say I have a really deep sense of community and civic duty. But between you, many of my colleagues that are happy, successful, and even an individual that I met recently that lives in a rural town and she was in charge of the economic development, she and I were on a walk up this very beautiful swimming mountain. At the very top, there were three beautiful houses. So I just sat for a moment and had this conversation. I told her, I said, religious, but the sense of community and mission that seems to really surround the individuals that I know that are religious and are well faith, I suppose is the right term. It seems like it really does help. So I don't necessarily have in there, but I would have any of that message to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really special community, and there's a lot of people that we have that volunteer here that are otherwise isolated in some ways, so maybe they are living by themselves and they really don't have a lot of interaction with other people. And so coming here to volunteer not only like feeds their soul, but like kind of their mind and body too. They develop friendships and gosh, start going out to lunch together. I mean, they really get to know each other and each other's lives. And so it's really special to watch, when people say why a food bank versus some other nonprofit. I mean, I think all in all, there are just passionate people that are wanting to make a difference in the community. And I really wanted to be a part of that. A lot of the people that come here to volunteer, it's not necessarily about what we're doing. So what I'm finding is there are many people who are isolated. So they're living by themselves, they're retired, whatever their situation is. And they come here to volunteer to really, fill up a little bit of their day. And then they end up meeting people and they form true friendships. They're going out to lunches and all sorts of different activities, which is really great. And so that's something which surprises me on a regular basis because it wasn't necessarily the intent when you think about it from the outside looking in, like you're a food bank trying to feed people. Yeah, but it's really a community, and it just shows the fact that regardless of what nonprofit, I mean, people are gathered together for a shared purpose, and that's pretty special.
Awesome. So I'd love to talk a little bit about what you had just mentioned, perfect transition, the current state of affairs, so to speak, the food insecurities that are occurring in Arizona. I know my eyes were really opened up at that Mesa Chamber Community Action event. And I think if I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a point made that food insecurity is now affecting not just lower income, but moderate income families. So you're the expert. I would love to learn a little bit more from you what's going on in our own backyards.
Yeah. And it's a surprising statistic. I mean, basically what people think, I feel like there's some myths out there about food insecurity, that's just homeless people, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there's low income families that are just struggling to make ends meet. And it really sort of started to get highlighted during the pandemic because there were some folks that actually lost their jobs or, and maybe they worked in retail or hospitality or, in the food business or something like that. They had great jobs, but suddenly they didn't because those places were closed either short term or long term. That really was an eye opener for some folks of how quickly things could change and really hard to get back on their feet. But, over the past couple of years, the cost of living has increased dramatically in Arizona. As you know, the rent has went up for people, the food prices, the gas prices, now insurance costs are also going up. And it is just very hard for people to make ends meet. So what might have been somewhat reasonable to live on for salary purposes for a family just isn't cutting it. And so we've seen some moderate income families that are suddenly in a space where they just don't know what to do. I mean, it's a pretty big change when your rent goes up, not just $100, but like $500, and then your insurance is going up several $100s. Like collectively, all of that is very, very impactful. And so, a lot of times people are coming to get food, supplemental food, just for a season in their life. Like it's not necessarily that they're going to need food for the next year. A lot of times it might be just for this month is really tight. Like I just need an extra food box in order to make ends meet. And gosh, why not, right? The other demographic that we see a lot too is there are grandparents that are suddenly caring for their grandkids. And these grandparents, they might be, retired and getting Social Security, and it's a fixed amount. Suddenly they have, a couple hungry kiddos in the house who eat constantly, right? And they are thinking, all right, now what do I do? Do I pay for rent, my medicine, different bills, or do I put food on the table? How can I make all of this work? And so again, we're here to provide help to folks that, as long as they need it, but typically it's a season.
I mean, I suppose that's a silver lining. I know from my experience with nonprofits that sometimes, even if you have identified the root issue, you have found a way to get to the people that need the help the most, and you have a solution for them. Sometimes, whether it be shame or some other feeling or just a hesitancy, people don't always reach out for help. Suppose my first question is that your experience as well sometimes? And if so, how does your organization ensure dignity and respect for those people in these tough situations?
It's tough and very humbling for folks that need help for whatever the reason it might be. And, while we don't serve people directly, we work with all of these nonprofits that do, and we hear from them of the different trends or feedback or needs. And we are really there to try and help meet those as much as possible. Personally, I think it's a pretty complicated system to be able to navigate different resources that are available for folks that might need them. Some of the resources are available, let's say weekdays between 8 and 5. Well, they might be working. So how are they going to get there? Or maybe they don't have transportation, or maybe they're sick and they have all these medical bills and they can't necessarily even get out of their home for a period of time. There's just so many different scenarios. And, when people come and ask for help, it is very humbling. We do have a lot of people that still walk in here and ask for help, being it's a food bank, and we do have to inform them of other resources that they can get as quickly as today. And we do give them some snacks, but we are just not set up to give them recurring food boxes or something like that. So we really connect them to some resources that are nearby. We know about them, the hours, the days that they distribute things, and also are kind of a connector to some of the other resources that might be available in town. So we're in the town of Gilbert, Gilbert has these little resource cards, which are very helpful for folks to take because it has information on housing and utility assistance and jobs and domestic violence shelters. I mean, all these different resources that they may have to go and look up online, or however they do it nowadays. If you don't have online, I don't know where you get it from. There's no phone books, but anyways, it's just a lot and it's hard, and you got to get a hold of people, and you got to figure out how am I going to get there during this time. And so we are trying to make those connections wherever possible, just to ease the burden on the actual person itself.
Speaking of systems, I suppose we should take a step back and clarify what you said about Midwest, because I think myself included, at first I thought, yeah, they're out there like handing food out to people, but do you want to give kind of more of an overview of the ecosystem of food pantries and how your organization fits into that?
Yeah, so I did not know what the difference was between a food bank or food pantry until I got into this world. So it's very common for people to kind of intermingle those two terms. But a food bank is essentially, I think of it like an umbrella um, of to provide food to other food pantries that are in the area. And those pantries are the ones that are distributing food or supplies for their households to people that are in need. So we are more or less a middleman or a distributor. One time somebody told me that a food bank is kind of like Costco for nonprofits. And I thought, that's true, I suppose, but it's free. And I know when I go to Costco, it is not free when I leave there. So that's a big difference. But we essentially get trucks and trucks and trucks of food donated for free, and we can get it sorted and all that and back out to these food pantries so they can take as much as they want. So maybe it's a couple of cases and that's really all they need. And there's others that will come in a big box truck or a semi and take that in order to feed the folks that they are part of their outreach. So Midwest Food Bank, just generally speaking, has been operating for about 22 years. And I started with a farmer who grew up giving back to his community with his mom. He really didn't know any different from that, besides she bought a bunch of extra groceries all the time and said, bring them to their neighbors that were in need. And so him and his brothers would put it in a little red wagon. And in Illinois, going to your neighbors is down about a mile-long dirt road. And so they'd get there, bring the food. And he later realized that, that was essentially feeling a passion that he had for helping others. And so he just did that in his community in Illinois for so many years. And at some point, they decided to help down in Hurricane Katrina in the area of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and brought some food down there. And Salvation Army said, please bring back 10 more loads. They said yes. And when they got back in the truck, his wife, David Keyser's wife, said, well, why would you say that we can bring 10 more loads? Like, we really only had this one load, and that was a lot to bring down. And he said, well, people are hurting. Like, they saw the devastation firsthand from that type of disaster that they just knew they had to help no matter what. And so phone calls later to different companies and manufacturers, their farmer friends that had a bunch of equipment and, trucks that are sitting around outside of harvesting season, and they were able to bring down about 167 semi-loads of food to that area, which is tremendous. And so that really started putting Midwest Food Bank on the map, the start of our disaster relief efforts as well. So today we have 10 U.S. locations, 2 international. We distribute over $500 million of food every year. And all that is from one person who had a passion to help others.
Just astounding. The thing that I love so much about nonprofits, you run into it in business as well, not as much, but nonprofits typically, because it's all bootstrap, because it's all individuals that are wildly passionate and have made a conscious decision to go do the hard work every single day, what you end up with is just complete creativity and this just say yes mentality and figure it out afterwards. Think that big business, governments, everyone can really benefit in that receipt. We are the ones that set limitations on ourselves, not the universe. So if there's people out there, if there's a need, if there's a problem that needs to be solved, we're perfectly capable of solving it. We don't have to get so bogged down by bureaucracy.
I agree with that. And, I think there's one of the benefits of being a faith-based nonprofit is just that we do not tie ourselves to government regulations or federal funding, which allows us a lot of flexibility in just doing what we want to do when we want to do it and where. And so we are able to, make decisions on what type of food we get or supplies and on where we get it out to. And there's processes and structures and oversight and all those things just like a regular company would have. But the thing is, we are trying to eliminate some of the burden that would otherwise be put onto nonprofits, like through the reporting that they need to do and things like that. So we do still have some. I'm not saying that it's a Wild West, but at the same time, we know that a lot of nonprofits are really run by maybe just one volunteer, maybe a handful. They may not have staff or a lot of funding, and they're just trying to help people. And so we just want to try and make that as easy as possible. And we do that through the streamlined, certification process, I guess that I'll say, on an annual basis. We just want to know what nonprofit, they're a 501c3, who they're serving. If they have any demographics, great. Approximately how many people a month, if they have different types of programs, and some do. And so that really is enough for us to be able to see their true impact. And then we also do some site visits. We go out to see our agencies and their operations to make sure that they align with what we're being told on paper. And, it's a great partnership.
It sounds like you complement each other's both size of operations and strengths very well. So Midwest seems to have a lot of flexibility. It's a machine of sorts. And then you have some agencies that could be one person, could be more, and they have that flexibility to really do good on ground work. What a symbiotic relationship. So you answered part of my question about funding. So I know you're not getting federal funding, but where is your funding and support coming from?
So the funding that we receive here at Midwest Food Bank is basically through different grants that I seek through corporations or foundations, or even the city or towns around here. We also have some focus on the Arizona tax credit, which is a win-win for people that are Arizona taxpayers. Instead of paying the state their liability, they can get a dollar for dollar credit through donating to a nonprofit. And so I bet a lot of people just don't know about that. And it's really an educational opportunity more than anything. And then we get individual donations from folks, whether it be financial or even like food drives. We have summer water drive happening right now. A lot of nonprofits do something like that, but there really is just there's never enough help with that for the hot environment that we live in Arizona, right? So we want to just try and prevent any heat-related deaths from people that might be unsheltered or living in their car. Even maybe if they have a home, but their air conditioner is broken, it's very, very dangerous. And so we have different types of programs in order to meet the needs of different populations throughout.
Do you happen to know, speaking of dehydration and heat-related illness, do you know Bottles for Bill with Amanda Ferguson? Is that a familiar organization?
Actually, I do not know about that. I know there are some different efforts on like the Maricopa County level, as well as some of the different like Town of Gilbert and Mesa and some other food pantries and food banks do them. But the one that you mentioned, I have not. So I'd love to hear about that at some point.
I just interviewed Amanda. She's the founder and CEO. Unfortunately, her brother passed away years ago. Young guy, very capable to be outside, but just went a little too long, got dehydrated, and unfortunately passed away. But then, individual woman decided to open up a nonprofit. Now they're doing great work, luckily in Mesa and Gilbert. So definitely send some info y'all's way. Yeah, it's good.
That's how things start,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's some sort of a situation or exposure to something, and next thing you know, people are pursuing it on behalf of others.
Beautiful how it happens. What about, so we've mentioned kind of red tape, bureaucracy, we talked about federal funding. But in terms of the work that your organization does, if you could change something, whether that's legislatively, culturally, structurally, ease food insecurity, what would you change?
The one aha that I've had about after having worked here for 5.5 years at this point is that a lot of it comes down to logistics. There is so much food that's available in the US. It's kind of disgusting to tell you the truth. Through overproduction or, maybe there's a misprint on the marketing, like the packaging, for example, or there's some new promotion they're going for, a different flavor. I mean, there's so many different reasons, but our goal is really just to rescue that food that would just otherwise go to the landfill because it's easier to do that. And we know there's people that are hungry and we know there's this excess food. And so we're just trying to bridge that gap. So when it comes down to logistics, it's sad that there's times where we have to say, no, we can't take a free load of free food to get to our community because we don't have the funds for that. We work with some different transportation partners as well as have our own volunteer drivers. But, there's a financial component to it. What I've seen is a lot of people like to donate food because it's tangible, like they can give it, to the food bank. And that's really wonderful and it's very helpful. But the cost of groceries nowadays, as everyone knows, is pretty expensive. And so, if we were to get $1 donated to us here at Midwest Food Bank, here in Arizona, we can turn that into $47 worth of food. So if you think you take that same dollar and you go to the grocery store, there's not a lot of things that you can get anymore. I'm not even sure, not a bottle of water, maybe like a banana or I don't know, something like that, right? That's just not a lot. That same dollar, we can get $47 worth of food. And people say, how is that possible? Well, if we have a free semi-load of food that's being offered to us, let's say it's from California, which is pretty common. It might cost us $1,500 to hire a broker to transport that here to Arizona, but that product is probably worth anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000. So I just need to figure out how to raise $1,500 to get that out to the community, and I'll do that all day. But it comes down to logistics, and companies just they need to get stuff out of the way to keep producing whatever they are producing for people. And so, we have to be super quick in our response time. And oftentimes we do have to take things that we maybe don't really want, but it is excess. And we know that there is an opportunity for some amazing nutritious items that will follow. And so we are there to provide a solution for these companies and, get something in people's bellies, if not anything.
This classification problem, it's one of those things where you're like, there's got to be something else there. And I know y'all have probably beat it with the dead horse, but I'm just, there's got to be. So right now, if I understood your description, if someone offered you food in a different state, you would have to find the funds, either you have them or you go raise them, and then be able to hire a broker company to go pick up that load, bring it here.
Yep.
Logistical nightmare. And you guys, what's like the employee structure of the locations or the volunteer structure, and what is everyone doing? For lack
Also,
of a
great
better,
question. Yeah. So we have 6 employees, which is not a lot, right, for any business. So when we have volunteer groups, I always tell them they've greatly multiplied our ability to do whatever the project is that we're doing. But one of our volunteer positions is CDL drivers. So there are gentlemen and women who are typically retired drivers, and they want to give back too. And that's such a unique skill set. They love the fact that we have a great equipment and flexibility, and they can kind of choose what type of driving they do and when and where. And we really try to be accommodating as much as possible. So there's folks that will do driving just around Phoenix to pick up some food that is available. There's others that will deliver to the Navajo Nation. We have a gentleman that's driving there today, actually, to Kayenta to bring food to an area where it's a food desert, meaning there's no grocery stores around. And then we have other drivers that love to go to out of state just in an overnight. So sometimes it's maybe Nevada or California or Utah, something like that. So kind of a quick overnight. And it gets them involved in another way too, otherwise than, packing bulk food or something. So those volunteer drivers are really helpful. The folks that we have here on staff, so myself as an executive director is kind of a little bit of everything. And we have a bookkeeper, operations manager. He's a gentleman who will find all of the food or procure it and also manage the kind of logistics of it. So whether we send a volunteer driver in our trucks or if we have to hire, and a gentleman who works with our agency. So we have about 280 nonprofits I mentioned. So all of those have paperwork to get on board with us, and they pick up every 2 weeks. And so there's a lot of communication and scheduling with them. We have a gentleman who works with volunteering and community outreach, and we have 8,000 or 9,000 volunteers every year, which is extraordinary. They volunteer probably 38,000 hours over that course of the year. And that is great, but it does take a lot of management as well. So there's businesses or, Girl Scout troops, individuals, all sorts of folks that are interested in volunteering in their community, which is lovely. And then we have a gentleman who does our warehouse coordination. So everything that's coming in and out on a daily basis, which is a lot, he takes care of. So a lot of moving pallets onto and off of trucks and semis and box trucks and things like that, and doing so in a safe manner too. So that is really the scope of our staff, and small but mighty, but a lot of them have been here for several years as well, just because they share that same passion. As you know, from a nonprofit, it's not as if we are, we're not in it for the money or the salary necessarily. It's more than that. And so we know that what we're all doing is in some way helping the people in our community. And so that really kind of ties us together too.
well, man, I miss the nonprofit world. It's a different breed. It's just a different breed. And kudos to y'all for the work that you're doing. How do you stay personally, how do you stay positive and effective and deal with compassion fatigue during the tough times? Because I'm sure you experienced it.
Yeah, I mean this wholeheartedly is we'd love to be out of business. So we don't want people to be hungry. There's a lot of factors that really play into why there is food insecurity. You know what? I think focusing just on what we can do and doing it, it might be one agency at a time. And we want to make sure that we're not saying why versus like, why not? Right. So let's try it, see what the results are for maybe some new way of doing things. And if it helps one person like that, that's worth it. We are faith-based, so we know that we are really able to do what we are doing simply based on that foundational belief. It doesn't make sense any other way of how this does work because we often say it's the worst business model ever. We get everything for free, but we have to pay for the operational costs and then we give it away for free, right? So, but you know what? It works. And our founder, he is a wonderful man to reflect back on as well. He has some TED Talks and things, and he's just very humble, but he was pulled out of school in eighth grade to help save his family farm. And he never got to go back. So the fact that he has founded a nonprofit who we are the largest independent food bank in the nation, over $500,000, $500 million a year that we're distributing. I mean, that's just like unfathomable. And so we know that we're super blessed to be able to do what we do. I mean, there are days that are hard, right? There's busy days and sometimes it's not enough people to do what we need to get done, but it's still worth it. And I don't think we'd have it any other way. I think it's just a matter of keep focus on the next day and just focus on the next day, because when we see people come in, even when we don't give food out, but we give them food out, it's very refreshing. I mean, they just need support and to be seen and heard. And even on their worst day, it's still a good day. And so we just try to meet them where they're at.
Well said, my friend. What's the call to action? So I've heard something important. The general public, we're so prone to bring cans of food, things on the pantry. What I heard you say was you can stretch a donation so much farther than canned food. So I've heard that. But what's perhaps a bigger ask to the community? I know we can't burn off food waste and food insecurity tomorrow, but what would be the bigger ask of everyone to support the work you're doing?
I talk to people that are volunteering, because a lot of times we're already fully booked for what we can accommodate here, but people have a heart of serving, which is great. So, ultimately it comes down to like pick a passion of yours, like pick a nonprofit that does some sort of outreach. And maybe it's animals, maybe it's kids, maybe seniors. I mean, there's so many different types. I mean, there's hundreds, right? So pick something and see how you can get involved. And it could be, gosh, doing data entry, for example, or maybe it's doing some community outreach or finding volunteers or doing a fundraiser. I mean, there's really a lot of ways people can get involved. It's not always about money. That obviously does help and helps to fuel the nonprofits, but it can come down to your time when it comes to food. People just cleaning out their pantry is a wise thing to do every so often. And so that's an easy thing too. You don't even have to go to the store nowadays. So that's great, but just participate. You're impacting so many people through whatever it is that you are choosing to focus on and take that step forward. So yes, I love what I do and the food bank that we have, but there are so many amazing nonprofits that, I mean, I'm blessed to be able to interact with so many of them, just to hear what they do. People are working very hard to lead these nonprofits. And gosh, I think it's unseen a lot of times. And I just feel like people spending a couple hours a month or a week or something like that is it's a huge investment. And you just don't know how thankful the nonprofits are.
It just personally from experience, it feels so good to give back. I know we're also busy, we're short on time. We don't always want to donate our money, but to donate your time to such a cause, or any cause to your point that you're passionate about, it makes a big difference for whoever's on the receiving end. But I promise, as a human being, it's part of the collective. It will be a done.
Right. There's a lot of positive mental health benefits from volunteering. So I think if people haven't volunteered, like myself. I didn't grow up volunteering. We just didn't have it where I was. I just didn't know. I mean, you helped out at church or something, but I mean, we just didn't. So to come and have volunteer with a corporation, there's a lot of teams that are working remotely now in the world and not in an office. And so they do team building together. And this is a really fun way to do that by coming to volunteer and then going out to lunch or something like that. There's a lot of ways. And so, I mean, there are often different websites that people can go on to find options where it's even at home type volunteer opportunities. So, writing little note cards that will go into some boxes that are sent overseas to military members. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything super radical. It can be just a nice attempt at making somebody's day, and that can go quite far. So, for business owners, we have a lot of folks that would like to get involved in some way. And so sometimes they will choose to do food drives for a week or a month and focus on anything and everything, or maybe they'll focus on just like peanut butter. And that is amazingly helpful. And so things like that are certainly welcomed. There are some businesses where they will get pretty creative in maybe a percentage of their sales or, a flat amount per transaction they do. And gosh, it might seem like a daunting task, but to do like a one day in a small amount like that, it's multiplied for so long. And we're just happy to have the community support.
Someone's getting the benefits of my upcoming peanut butter pantry drive because you have absolutely inspired me. That sounds like a good test.
Right? Everyone loves peanut, unless you're allergic. But yeah, I mean, that's an easy thing to do. In corporate America, we used to have canned drives that would be like Tuna Tuesday and then, things like that. And to try and get really high protein, really good for you type items. And we're very thankful. So
Amazing. So glad to hear. I'm just glad that, first of all, you had the experience you had in corporate America, but then decided to leave and do this work and you're in my back and you're doing it. So I just want to thank you and appreciate you for that. I know it's not easy. Seems like you're in the right position. So if people want to learn more, where should they go?
So we encourage people to go to our website to learn more about us. So midwestfoodbank.org. You can find information about just our broader reach across the U.S. and even international. We have a location in Kenya and Haiti. And you have information about volunteering. There are ways you can support through, team building and fundraisers, as I mentioned. We even have some fun things for kids on our website, like coloring books that help to educate them about healthy food choices and things of that nature. So MidwestFoodBank.org, we are on some different volunteer websites for folks that might be just generally searching for things to do. We'd love to have people come in and join us. It's easy, it's fun, it's inside, so you're not outside in the heat at all. And you really are able to see the impact that a group of folks can have in just a couple of hours as they're serving the community.
Well, I encourage everyone, get involved. Go talk to Merilee, our team at Midwest Food Bank. Y'all are doing great work. And thank you so much for your time today and sharing your story. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, too.